Welcome back to the Birdhouse Dynasty Show, Mock Draft Monday. We're back here right on the heels of the end of the college football season. Ohio State taking down Notre Dame 34-23. The college football championship tonight. Quinshon Judkins surely proving his draft stock tonight. The 100 yards on the ground. 3 total touchdowns. Ohio State had control of this one pretty much throughout the game. I know it got close there with 4 minutes to go, but game was sealed by a 56-yard toss to the freshman Jeremiah Smith, who undoubtedly is one of the most exciting prospects for the 2027 draft, but that's 2 years away. So we're talking 2025 draft this year, where we've got the top pick going to the Tennessee Titans, Cleveland Browns picking second, New York Giants third. Should be a real interesting draft with so many teams of need picking highly this year. There's not really any playoff teams who ended up with some shitty teams pick. So teams that really need to rebuild will be getting the early picks. What is it? 4 out of the first 6 picks are teams that need quarterbacks. Unfortunately, this isn't a very quarterback talent-laden class, so it should be real interesting there as well. We've got maybe a couple of free agent quarterbacks out there who will go to one of these teams. Those teams, again, are the Titans at 1, Browns at 2, Giants at 3, and then the Raiders pick at 6. All 4 of those teams really looking to try and stabilize their quarterback situation. So that's one of the main storylines, of course, heading up to this 2025 draft. Of course, if we look at the main Dynasty schedule, NFL schedule that we've got coming up here, we'll have championship week coming up next week, and then 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, of course, February 9th. Then a couple weeks we'll have to wait for the combine and then free agency period. And then we get a month of absolute pandemonium for these rookies, and the hype will get out of control. It's already starting right now. Like I said, Quinshon Judkins definitely helping his stock. Travion Henderson, his teammate, not too shabby as well, adding 49 yards on the ground tonight. And then Mecca Buka, the wide receiver, getting 64 yards on 6 catches. Jeremiah Smith, the freshman, outdid him, though, with 5 catches for 88 yards and a touchdown. But that doesn't ruin Nick Buka's stock. We all know where he's at, and he's going to be a very solid NFL-ready wide receiver for whichever team ends up deciding to add him to their roster. So if anybody who's joined in here wants to make some picks, by all means, you are more than welcome to take a team or two or pick every other pick with me here. But otherwise, I'm going to get things started up here shortly. Wanted to mention the divisional round here last weekend. It was a heartbreak hotel for the Lions fans. Shout out to Hergot there, our big fan. Feel bad for you, man. But, my Bucks lost to the Commanders the week before, so I know what it is. Jaden Daniels is just a monster right now. And anybody trying to acquire him in Dynasty is pretty ballsy, because he is I mean, I can't see ranking Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson ahead of him right now, at least hype-wise. Performance-wise, I would personally probably take Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson heading into next season, but with the years that you'll gain by acquiring Jaden Daniels, I have a hard time not ranking Jaden Daniels number one in Dynasty overall right now. It'll be interesting to see some new startups and which of those three goes number one overall. I'm sure you could see a mix of any of those three dudes going number one overall. But yeah, we had some good games this week. Wild card weekend wasn't that great. Only the Bucks Commanders game was a real nail biter. But this weekend we had the Commanders Lions game was exciting, and I mean it didn't come down to the very last play, but man, there was all sorts of fireworks in that game. Starting with the Terry McLaurin screen pass taking it to the house. That was like a 70-yarder. Then just a couple plays later was the pick six that Jared Goff got lit up on. So then Bridgewater had to come in, and he did a end-around play to Jamison Williams, who went the other way to the house. I mean, the first half was insane. And then second half, Jaden Daniels just kind of took control of the game. And Jaden Daniels, man, I read a little article of his on Twitter about the VR that he did and how he demanded that any team that drafts him allow him a certain amount of VR hours. And the VR, the virtual reality headset, really transcended his game in college. During that Heisman season, he's put in over 600 hours of VR, and he basically, what he does is he runs it at 1.75 speed, which is interesting because I just happen to run all the other podcasts that I listen to at 1.75 speed. But anyway, just a tip for you out there who listen to more than just yours truly, if you want to gain all the knowledge possible, because clearly I am not the end-all be-all of Dynasty here. There's much other information out there as well. I'm not huge on rankings. I'm more into strategy. So if you want big ranking, but a big rankings episode or whatever, you can find that elsewhere. But I'm more into the strategy and the tiers and groups of players and how you want to manipulate those into gaining the most value for your roster. But anyway, what Jaden Daniels is doing is just amazing. All of the virtual reality, what he does is the next week's opponent is he'll watch like 600 plays of the defense that he's going against, VRing it against his own team's plays. And so he'll get, like, let's say that he's running 60 plays, he'll get 10 different defensive formations against that one play, and he runs it with the opponent's defense running at 1.75 speed. So then when it comes into reality for him on Sunday, or in this case, Saturday night, the game slows down for him. And so I think that's just been a huge factor in a rookie being able to adapt to the speed of the NFL. And so I would think that this type of study and of training will become more used and more of the norm going forward. I could see, 4 or 5 years down the road, like my kid's going to be in high school, then I could see him training with VR. So we'll see though, but I think it's just very interesting and another way that the game is evolving and helping the young players adapt to the NFL at a better rate, which means that the rookies are going to continue to enter the league at a more elite level and not just have the talent, but be able to perform at the speed of the game that the NFL has versus just what college has. So, all right, so let's get into the mock draft. Anybody else? I see a couple people here. If whoever's here, chime in the chat, please. By all means, I want you to make some picks. Let's get to it. Let's make some picks, people. All right. So let me bring up the draft board here. We're doing it on Pro Network. Now, if you want to make a pick, just I'll start with if somebody wants the Titans, I mean, by all means, you can be the Titans. I don't care. I went through a 3-round mock last week on this, and this is all because Sleeper hasn't uploaded the rookies yet, so I figure, hey, why not get used to some of these names and be familiar with where some of these dudes are going to get drafted. I mean, obviously, we're Dynasty and fantasy wise, we're more focused on the skill players, but if we get an idea of how many players that are non-skill players are going to get drafted and where they're going to get drafted, we're going to be a little more familiar with where our guys are going to be picked. Now, also, I'm in a 53-man league where we start 11 IDPs, so I don't mind knowing where the defensive players are going now. That'll help me in that league for sure. Anyway, so let's get rolling here. So last week we did our mock, and I said beforehand that I was going to draft the offensive skill players into ideal situations, right? So I had like Jeanty going to the Cowboys and Omarion Hampton going to the Chargers, Caleb Johnson going to the Raiders. So they were all coming into backfields without really any competition, right? So because Dowdle's a free agent in Dallas, you've got J.K. Dobbins is a free agent in with the Chargers, and so we don't know that those guys will be back. They could easily be somewhere else next year. And then the Raiders, obviously, they don't have really anything at running back going for them right now. So those would be ideal situations for these top-end rookie running backs to fall into. But, if they don't go there, then who knows? We could have a 4th or 5th round running back falling into the lap of a prime volume opportunity there. And in any of those 3 situations that I'm talking about, Dallas, the Chargers, and the Raiders, but the Broncos is another possible great situation for a rookie to fall into volume-wise, with Javonte Williams being a free agent. But ultimately, what I've learned over the years is that talent trumps everything. So even if one of our favorite running backs here goes to a situation where there's a decent incumbent, and think the Lions situation, right? They had just signed David Montgomery to a deal, and then they went ahead and took Jahmyr Gibbs at 12 overall, which seemed insane to most of us. Like he was overdrafted and going to a situation where there was another solid veteran dude. And we were like, oh, no, this is terrible. And what has it shown? Yeah, we were all wrong. I mean, talent wins out. And it even speaks for David Montgomery. I mean, Montgomery's been a monster in Detroit. So, again, just if good football players are going to play good football, that's what we want to see here. So, what we're going to do this time I'm not going to just do best player available, but last time I did a lot of need drafting. This time I'm going to look at best player available, try and do it like at least half the time. So this time here, now the Titans, they have Will Levis still. Mason Rudolph is a free agent, so he's not going to be there probably. But the question is do they really take a quarterback at 1? Last draft, I did Camward at 1, but this time I'm going to just go ahead, take the big guy, travishunter, number 1 for the Titans, and they're going to take the most talented player in college, the Heisman winner, the thumbnail that I got on there for you. Ooh. He's going 1 to the Titans. They're just going to figure it out, take the most talent, and don't look back. Now, the Browns would be on the clock here at number 2, and with their situation with Deshaun Watson, they would be uberly pressured to take a quarterback, whether it's Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. And so, but, they got Myles Garrett there who kind of, I don't know if that he's not demanding to get out of town, but he wants to be a winner, right? So it wouldn't shock me if Myles Garrett gets traded here and the Cleveland Browns go Abdul Carter, number 2. So number 2, Abdul Carter to the Browns. All right. So then we've got the New York Giants. And I mean, if you're on Twitter or X, you've seen nothing but the horror takes shown from last season's Hard Knocks with the Giants and their GM, where his kid was saying to draft Jaden Daniels, and the other guys in the office saying how they should re-sign Saquon and blah, 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 the narrative of how they could have Jaden Daniels and Saquon here, and here's Jaden Daniels and Saquon leading their teams to the NFC Championship. Just the irony is just sickening for the New York Giants. And so what do we have here but a great situation for a big name in Shedeur Sanders. And so he's going to go to the Giants at number 3. Now, I personally am not huge on Shedeur. I don't think his arm is super strong, but the kid's got some charisma, and I think he could handle the New York media. So that is one plus he's got going for him. And so we're going to throw Shedeur into New York and then move on here with number 4. And last time I had Abdul Carter because he was still sitting there going to the Patriots. This time I am not going to let them pass on the man, Tet McMillan, the number 1 wide receiver prospect this year. This guy's a beast. As a Bucs fan, I can't help but see Mike Evans in this kid. I mean, you watch him play, and he even lines up like Mike. And what can I say now? 10 years from now, 11 years from now, is he going to have 1,000 yards every season? I kind of doubt it because Evans and Jerry Rice are literally the only 2 people to ever have done it. So, but that said, I think that Tet is a very good prospect, the number 1 wide receiver prospect, in my opinion, in this draft. And he would be an absolute smash addition to the Patriots. Now, I could easily see them going offensive line because they do need help there, but their wide receiver, I don't see any wide receiver on that team that I literally really want on my dynasty roster. I'm not going out there looking to trade for any of them. I mean, sure, I might end up with one as a throw-in in a deal, but I am not. Last offseason, I was pumping up Javon Baker, and he was just a disaster. So this helps them out immensely. All right, let's go. Next up, we've got the Jacksonville Jaguars, who could use help in the trenches. And either way, this problem with Pro Football Network is I think that they're off a little on the tackle rankings. And so I'm going to go Kelvin Banks from Texas. I think he's the top tackle in this draft. And the Jags would be well served to help out Trevor Lawrence by getting him a tackle. All right. Next up is the Raiders. And so, as we mentioned, the Raiders could use a quarterback. Minshew technically is under contract. So is Aiden O'Connell. But I don't know that they want to go either way with them. But I do want to mix things up a little this one. And so we're going to go a little spicy here. I was talking to the Fantasy Reaper earlier. He's somebody, well, some of you may be familiar with the Reaper. He's in a few of our leagues. And he was like, hey, what if, because obviously we're all looking at the Cowboys at 12, right? They need a running back. They need Ashtonjeanty, right? It seems like a great spot. But what if he doesn't go there? What if he goes earlier? Who would he go to? I think the Raiders are the kind of team looking to make a splash move. They could be the team to do it. So that's what I'm doing. I'm picking Ashtonjeanty there. The Jets are up next, and the Jets definitely have no problem going defense. We don't know who their coach is going to be. But we know that the D tackle from, if I can see, I hate how they have this set up. I can't scroll back up over here. Trying to take, there we go. I'll take the D tackle for Michigan, Mason Graham there. There we go. Still learning all the defensive players' names. Okay, so now we've got camward sliding on this draft. The Saints are sitting there at 9. They could be hungry for him. We've got the Panthers on the clock here right now, and the Panthers could use. This is where I want to. Okay, there we go. Now I can see their needs. All right. Perfect. Okay, so the Panthers are a perfect place for Malachi Starks to go. I think that's who I had them take last time. So I hate to, but they could go. Any of these three dudes would be a perfect match. They need help all over on defense. So literally any of these 5 defensive players would be good picks for their need. They don't need Cam Ward, though, because Bryce Young has looked decent. We're just going to take Mikael Williams there. Then it's the Saints, and the Saints could use a quarterback. So we're going to take Cam Ward for the Saints. Interesting fit. Kubiak's still at the helm there. He could do wonders with the kid. And there's still playmakers there. They've got Olave. They've got Shaheed coming back from injury. Kamara's still going to be there. Here I am, a Bucs fan, and I absolutely fucking hate the Saints, but they've got some talent there, and they could make something happen next year. So we'll see. But next up is the Bears, and the Bears, fresh on the heels of picking up Ben Johnson just 2 days after, not even 48 hours after losing to the Commanders in the playoffs. Ben Johnson's made his decision. He is going to Chicago, ready to take on his Lions next year, twice a year. Should be exciting to see what he does with Caleb Williams and the Bears offense. I think that the Bears would be an exciting place for any offensive player to go. I think that most importantly for them, though, they got to build up the trenches. And so we're looking at the next tackle here on the board here, which is Will Campbell out of LSU. We're going to draft him to the Bears out of need, but not a bad player either. So, all right, let's get this fresh here. Okay, there we go. Now we're to the Niners. And the Niners need to show corner, guard, tackle, edge, and linebacker, okay? But we know that the Niners like their D tackles, and let's see what they've got looking on the defensive side there. Malachi Starks, Will Johnson, a great corner, Nick Scorton, James Pierce. Oof. So there's a couple of good edge guys. I think that we're going to go, we're going to go with the top edge guy to the Niners. That's Nick Scorton from A&M. All right. Next up is the Cowboys, and we all know how Jerry loves to make a splash. And this time we're going to have the Cowboys go offense again, but they're going to go with the wide receiver, Luther Burden. Great underneath complement to CeeDee Lamb. He can play on the outside or inside. I think he would just be very nicely interchangeable with CeeDee there. Could be exciting. Next up is the Dolphins, and the Dolphins could use help in a lot of spots. Safety is one of them, and so we're going to take Malachi Starks for them, best player available. The Colts have been mocked tight end all over the place. I'm going to give them Tyler Warren again. He's my favorite tight end in this class. Just watching him at Penn State in a couple of games, and you saw, if you've watched them, you see how they move him around all the place like Bowers was at Georgia. And so Tyler Warren's somebody I love. In the right leagues, I could see him going in the top 10 of picks for our rookie drafts coming up. So keep an eye out there. Watch some film on Tyler Warren. You'll see what I'm talking about. Next up is the Falcons. And I really want the Falcons to screw this pick up, but they have picked corners in the past, and so they'll go with Will Johnson here, the top true corner in the draft out of Michigan. Very solid player and perfect fit for the Falcons there. Next up is the Cardinals, and the Cardinals are looking at, they could use an edge, a guard, a wide receiver, D tackle, a linebacker. And I think that Emeka Egbuka would be an ideal fit alongside Marvin Harrison there in Arizona. That could be just a match made in heaven. The two played together at Ohio State, could become teammates again in the NFL, and that would definitely help Kyler and his stock this offseason. I'd love that pick to happen. We'll see if the Cardinals go wide receiver and if indeed it is Emeka Egbuka. Egbuka is a senior, so he stayed in next year. He could have been one of the top 5 receivers picked last year. Like, he could have been picked right there with Brian Thomas. Now, I think Brian Thomas is much more. His ceiling is way up here, but Egbuka is sort of that solid one wide receiver too, and that's why I think he'd fit perfect for the Cardinals. Even though it's a first round pick, you want to usually get high end talent, but for what they're trying to accomplish there, they could get back to what they had going with Fitzgerald and Bolden for all those years. You could have Harrison and Egbuka. Now we've got Cincinnati on the clock, and Cincinnati's an interesting one. Cincinnati, their offseason hinges on what they decide to do with T. Higgins. Now, it's not like they have first rights on T. Higgins or whatever. He was a second-round pick, so he's free to go wherever he wants. I think he wants to stay in Cincinnati so that he's with, Chase and Burrow. But if the Bengals can't afford him, he'll go elsewhere. So they could look wide receiver, but if the top 3 wide receivers are gone, the next wide receiver is Trey Harris, and you can see his ranking. He's way down at 38. I think that would be quite a reach to move for a Trey Harris or any of these other guys at this point. Now, the combine could lift the value of one of these dudes. Trey Harris is a great receiver. He was having a historic season going there for Ole Miss early on and then got hurt. So it'll be interesting to see what he does, if he does at the combine or at his pro day. But Trey Harris is a very intriguing wide receiver. I'm not going to go that route for the Bengals, though. Tight end is kind of a need. I'm not sure why they've got him there. If they have Gesicki, I know Eric All, their pretty solid tight end last year that they took, is injured. So that might be why they have tight end listed there. But, Cincinnati just needs some help on the defensive side. And so I'm going to go, it says D tackle. There's tons of D tackles in this draft that'll be there in the second round. The next one is a dude out of Oregon. I think that would be a little bit of a reach. So we're going to go with James Pierce, the edge rusher. He's the last edge rusher projected to go in the first here. Well, I guess Mike Green technically as the 31st ranked dude, but we're going to have the Bengals go best player available there in the edge rusher in James Pierce from Tennessee. So next up, we've got the Seahawks. The Seahawks, what do they got going on? They need an edge, quarterback, safety, tackle, and guard. And so they've been looking to beef up their line, and I think we've got Booker from Bama and Cameron Williams, a Texas tackle, the other tackle there. I think that all signs are leaning towards Geno being back again. One more ride, and let's help him out with the top guard on the board in Tyler Booker from Alabama. Next up are my Buccaneers, and I swear, if we don't pick defense, I don't know my team. That's all I got to say, because, unless we don't re-sign Chris Godwin, which all signs right now are pointing towards we will be able to. We have the cap space. We have a very good cap situation, and we've got some magicians there down in Tampa working the salary cap. And so we're going to go Siobhan Revel out of East Carolina, the top corner on the board right now. I like Ben Morrison out of Notre Dame, but we're going to go with the most talented guy here out of East Carolina. Next up are the Broncos, and the Broncos' needs are wide receiver, tackle, running back, and D tackle. Now, this draft is just littered with defensive tackles in the second round. We're looking at defense. Let's go back to but they need some weapons on offense. And so I'm looking, could go that way, but we're going to go Cam Williams, tackle, help out Bo Nix, bring in the old big guy from Texas. Here's Cameron Williams, 6'5", 335. Oh, yes, this guy is quite a beast. All right. So we'll go tackle to the Broncos. Now, the Steelers, last time I had them take Ben Morrison, the corner out of Notre Dame. And, the Steelers' MO is to take a Steelers guy, and Ben Morrison's that type of guy, but they also look for help on the edge always. They're never passing up a good defensive player. Jalen Walker fits that mold here. He played both as an edge rusher and off-ball linebacker. It projects as primarily an edge. We're going to go Jalen Walker to the Steelers this time. Just a pick that makes sense. Next up is the Chargers, and they are looking corner or running back, ideally, I think. They could use Colston Loveland. He's sitting right there. Oh, I think it'd be hard for Jim Harbaugh to pass up a dude that he recruited to Michigan. So I'm going to go Colston Loveland, who's still sitting there. Best player available. And that doesn't necessarily fit their need, but Will Dissly didn't really have the best of a playoff game. So that really helps out the Chargers, in my opinion, at least. So next up is the Packers, and the Packers we know can use a corner. And last time I had them getting Derek Harmon, the D-tackle out of Oregon. This time Ben Morrison is sitting there for them. So I'm going to have them grab Ben Morrison. That'll be a great fit for the Packers and their defense, led by the dude out of I can't think of his name. Fairley, the dude from Boston College. And I think he's getting some hits to be a head coach, but I think he's going to stay. So I'm not too worried about that. They're going to go defense. Corner is a typical Packers first round pick. So I think they go that route if he was sitting there waiting for him. Next up is the Vikings. Vikings now, I have no idea why it lists quarterback as a need. They've got J.J. McCarthy, possibly Sam Darnold back in the wings, but I think they're fine there at quarterback. We're going to look. They need corner, safety, guard, and running back. Oof. Thinking running back. Marion Hampton and Caleb Johnson sitting there. Oh. Yet they could go safety. We're going to go safety for them. Nick Emanwari from South Carolina. 6'3", 227. Definitely rock solid there. Anybody who grabs that guy, that 6'3", 227 is a solidly built safety. My God, I love this draft. I mean, here's the thing. With this draft here in the 2025 class, like, yes, the quarterbacks might not be all that exciting. I mean, sure, you've got the hype of the name of Shedeur Sanders, but I don't know how good he really is. But all the other positions, like especially at running back and D-tackle, all around the board on defense, there is some studs. So don't be upset if your team goes with a defensive player in the first round this year. That's all I got to say, because there is plenty of talent here on the defensive side of the ball. All right, next up, we've got the Texans, and the Texans, what was lacking for the Texans in their loss to the Chiefs this week? It was such a frustrating game to watch. I mean, I just saw highlights, but, you know, the highlights that I saw of the couple of unnecessary roughness and the late hit on Mahomes from Will Anderson, which was just absolute trash, just makes me sick. And, you know, we got 99% of the country rooting for the Bills this week to beat the Chiefs now. I think that DeMeco Ryans jumps on Derek Harmon here, the D tackle sitting there for him. Yeah, we'll go with best player available for the Texans. Now the Rams are up, and the Rams defense just exploded these playoffs. 9 sacks against the Vikings, and what was it, 7 or 8 sacks against Jalen Hurts and the Eagles in that Snow Bowl. So I think that they are pretty well set on defense, although it says they need linebacker, corner, then it's wide receiver and tackle. So we're going to go tackle for them, with him being the top guy on the board. Fits in perfect to their need. Josh Simmons out of Ohio State, 6'5", 311. He was once projected as the top tackle in this draft. He had a knee injury requiring surgery. Okay. So this is a risky pick, but we'll go ahead and take it, assuming that he does clear all injury concerns. Looks like a solid dude. Next up is the Ravens, and the Ravens, yikes. So I don't know how much more frustrating it can get for a team, a franchise, fan base, when somebody as trusted as Mark Andrews over the years goes and has a fumble with 8 or 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and then goes ahead and drops the 2-point conversion that could have tied it with under 2 minutes to go. Man, that is just a bitter pill to swallow, and the Bills won. So what could Ravens be looking at doing here? Shows the Ravens' needs as tackle, corner, guard, linebacker, wide receiver. We've got D tackle, offensive tackle, safety, edge, corner. We're going to go with the offensive tackle from Arizona here, Jonah Savaiinaea. Nothing here other than that he's 6'5", 330. Looks like a solid tackle. So we'll go ahead and make that pick for them. Next up is the Lions, as we mentioned earlier. Wish we had Hergot here to make the pick for them. But they're looking at needing edge, corner, D tackle, wide receiver, safety. I think with what happened there, we're going to go safety and Jade Barron, 5'11", 200. And yes, he's a ball hawk, holds a second-round grade, and promising nickel corner at the next level. Looks like he can be moved around. I think Aaron Glenn now with that performance is probably going to stay home in Michigan there in Detroit. And so that's what we're looking at, is the Lions moved up a couple picks from last week, where they were picking last as the top team in the NFL. Now we've got the Commanders on the board. Commanders, corner, wide receiver, tight end, linebacker, running back. So here's where we could see an interesting selection. I'm going to go a little bit out of bounds here and take Omarion Hampton to the Commanders. Seems like a great fit with Jaden Daniels there. Sometimes you just got to go a little off base here, and I could see Omarion Hampton throwing a wrench into things. Let's do it. So Omarion Hampton goes to the Commanders. What does that mean for Brian Robinson? I think Brian Robinson still has his role. I don't think that Eckler's contract, I'm not for certain, but he is a little long in the tooth, so we'll go Omarion Hampton to the Commanders. Next up is the Bills, and the Bills' needs are shown as corner, safety, edge, wide receiver, tackle. Now, with their needs, I can see them going wide receiver and this Trey Harris, although I like Restrepo too. But Restrepo is too much like Khalil Shakir. I'm going to go with Trey Harris. That could form a dynamic duo with Coleman on the outside. So we're going to go with Trey Harris, get another wide receiver jumping into the first round there. Next up is the Eagles, and the Eagles needs our linebacker, edge, guard, D-tackle, and wide receiver. And we know how they love to pick the guys in the trenches. We're going to go with Tyleik Williams. He's a horse, 6'3", 327 D-tackle. That's a perfect Eagles pick. And finally, the Chiefs, who also need D-tackle, will finish it off with a D-tackle for them, Walter Nolan. So there we have the first round finished up. And we'll head into the second round now. Now, the Browns did not take a quarterback in the first round. They went with who did they pick? We had them take Abdul Carter in the first round. So they went probably the most, aside from Hunter, most talented player in this draft, could end up as the best player in the draft. But they easily could be looking quarterback, and I like Jalenmilroe to the Browns to take over, get some excitement in there. If they go Abdul Carter and Jalenmilroe, that's going to be some excitement for the Browns fans. Next up is the Giants, who took Shedeur Sanders in the first. Now they could use another wide receiver, and Xavier Restrepo fits that need perfectly. We know that they have Wan'Dale Robinson still, but I think Restrepo is that type of guy. They need a quarterback, though, too. Is Jackson Dart the guy? Wide receiver's a little deep. They could go, we'll go Jackson Dart to the Giants. There we go. All right, next up is the Titans, who took Travis Hunter in the first round. Now, they're still sitting without a quarterback, but they could get one in the next round. So next up, they need linebacker, wide receiver, tackle, D-tackle. This is a team with a lot of needs here. Defensively, I think, here we go. Jaheed Campbell from Alabama would be a solid pick for the Titans. Then we've got the Jaguars, who picked the tackle in the first round. They need a guard too. Overall, let's see. Got an edge, corner, and safety up top for the Jaguars. We'll go ahead and give them the top corner on the board, Trey Amos from Ole Miss. Next up is the Patriots, and the Patriots we had take Tet McMillan in the first, so now they're looking to help out that O-line, I think. But let's see here. Where's the next best tackle? Oh, dude out of Minnesota. But you've got Mike Vrabel there now. They could use a safety. We'll give them Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame. That seems like a solid Mike Vrabel type pick. There we go. Jets are now on the clock. And Jets. Quarterback, tackle, corner, safety, and tight end are their needs. I think that when you look at the Jets, Harold Fannin seems to be a fit there. Fannin, of course, the tight end who put up the big numbers at Bowling Green. So he's a very intriguing guy. Could easily go in the first. We'll give Fannin to the Jets. Next up is the Raiders, who took Jeanty in the first round. They could literally use anything. So we're going to give them, let's see here. Jeanty in the first. Who's the next quarterback on the board here? Could go Quinn Ewers. But Howard. They need everything on offense. We're going to go Restrepo for them. Yeah, there we go. Saints now. Saints took Camward in the first. We're going to give them the edge rusher on top of the board. Mike Green from Marshall. We'll see how he does at the Senior Bowl. And then we got the Bears back-to-back. So the Bears took tackle. Yeah, tackle the first round. And now, let's see. They could use the edge rusher, guard, D-tackle, wide receiver. I think that tough to pass on the edge rusher, but I think if we go offensive guard with one pick, and then, yes, we'll do this for the Bears. That's in the top of edge rusher. That'd be a real solid start for Ben Johnson's regime in Chicago. Now, of course, we're doing this with no trading involved. The Bears could easily trade one of those picks to move up into the first somewhere if they see somebody, or both of those picks they could use to get back up into the first round. Now we got the Niners on the clock, and the Niners first round pick went with the edge guy out of Texas A&M. They need corner, lineman. We'll go with the tackle or an edge rusher. Princely Umanmielen from Ole Miss. That seems like a Niners name. Princely. We'll go to the Niners. Next up is the Cowboys, and the Cowboys. So, Cowboys, we had taking Luther Burden, the wide receiver, in the first round. I think we're going to go excitement again here for the Cowboys and take Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. I know Jerry said that he's not big on running backs, but I think he had in mind this big running back class this year. So Jerry likes to play tricks. We'll have Caleb Johnson go to the Cowboys. Next up is the Colts, and they took Tyler Warren in the first, eliminating that need. Next up, they need safety, linebacker, corner, or center. And let's see here. I only have defensive player. No, these are all defensive players now on the board. None of these needs are fitting what they need, so we're just going to go top player available. Next up is the Falcons, who took a corner in the first round. Top corner Will Johnson out of Michigan. So that took care of that need. And they need an edge guy. We'll take JT Tuimoloau from Ohio State. Next up is the Cardinals, who took a Ibuka in the first. So what are their other needs? Edge, guard, D-tackle, linebacker. We'll give them the guard from Ohio State to help out Kyler. There we go. Dolphins are up on the clock. Now they took Malachi Starks the first, so that got their safety. They just had their guard stolen from them, so they can go Ken Grant from Michigan to start. Okay, now we got the Bengals, and they took an edge in the first. So they took best player available. They could use a D tackle there, so they're going to go defense. Defense, although Alec Amenora, he's almost a perfect fit to replace T. Higgins. We'll take him for the Bengals. There we go. He's a late rising wide receiver, 4-year starter or 4-year player at Stanford, and he's a big guy. Look at his measurables here, 6'2", 209. So he'd be a perfect fit to replace T. Higgins. Okay. Next up is the Seahawks, and who did they grab in the first? The guard from Bama. So then we're looking at edge, corner, quarterback, safety, or guard. Would they take in the first? Guard, huh? Okay. And so they do need tackle. They got a guard in the first. So we'll go ahead and give them the tackle out of Minnesota. They're going to beef up their O-line with this draft. Now, the Broncos took tackle, but they could go. This is where they could make things interesting. Let's look at their offensive players available. We've got Judkins and Travion Henderson. Ooh, either of them looks juicy. For the Broncos, we're going to go Judkins to the Broncos. Steelers are up next. Steelers took a linebacker. Yeah. First round. Next up, we're looking at, I think Isaiah Bond is going to fit there. Bond's a speedy wideout, could fit in with George Pickens very well. So I think we're going to go with Isaiah Bond to them. That would be a Steelers pick. Next up, my Buccaneers. And I'm telling you what, if Deion Walker is sitting there, I swear, I hope we take him. 6'6", 348. This guy is just a beast. And we went corner in the first. So, yeah, let's go Deion Walker. Next up is the Packers. They went corner in the first, Ben Morrison. So they could be looking at D tackle as well here. TJ Sanders. That would be a great pick for them. 6'4", 290. Yeah, we're going to go where they could go with the corner, too. Nah, we're going to go with the D tackle for the Packers. Next up's the Chargers. They took Loveland, the tight end, first. They need a corner, so they'll take Maxwell Harrison from Kentucky. Next up is the Bills. And the Bills took Trey Harris, which would up his draft stock for sure. In our rookie drafts, they do need tackle, though, so they'll take a tackle in the second round, tackle out of LSU. And then we've got the Panthers on the clock. And the Panthers went, so they had a pick at 8, and then they don't pick again until 57. They took the edge guy, Mikael Williams from Georgia, in the first. They need safety, corner, center. There's a safety out of Penn State. We'll give them to the Panthers. I could see them going defensively heavy in this draft. They do need a wide receiver, the Panthers, but I think they could get one in the third. So the Texans are back on the clock now. D tackle in the first. It says they need corner, wide receiver, running back, linebacker. Darian Porter sitting there from Iowa State. Or Barrett Carter from Clemson. think that's a D'Amico Ryans type pick. Yeah. Back to the Ravens. Took tackle in the first. They need a corner, guard, linebacker, wide receiver. Well, if Barrett Carter went right before him, they'll take the corner, Darian Porter from Iowa State. And the Lions are back on the clock. So the Lions took a safety in the first. They do need an edge rusher, and we've got 3 top edge guys here. And we'll give him Jack Sawyer from Ohio State. He seems like a perfect fit into the Lions scheme there. Yeah. Next up, we've got Washington, Bills, Kansas City, or the Eagles in Kansas City. Now, Washington, we had take Omarion Hampton in the first as sort of a surprise pick. Now they're looking at, they need wide receiver, tight end, linebacker, or running back. So none of these really fits a need. But so we'll give them the top player available. That's the edge guy out of Boston College. Then we've got the Bills. Bills went wide receiver and tackle so far. They still need a corner, edge, so they need an edge. We'll give them Kyle Kennard. That just sounds like a Buffalo Bill. 6'5", 254 out of South Carolina. Some speed. All right, D-tackle went to the Eagles. Of course, we know they like to go in the trenches, and they could use a guard, and there's a guard sitting there from Georgia. I don't think they'd pass on that. 6'6", 320. Yeah, he's a perfect Eagles pick. And we've got the Chiefs with the D-tackle in the first. They need a guard, wide receiver, safety, tight end. There's a safety here, Andrew Mukuba from Texas. Perfect pick there. Man, although Matthew Golden's sitting there, they would, with their needs at wide receiver, because with this uncertainty of Rashee Rice, I'm just going to have them take, there we go, Matthew Golden. No, I took Andrew, the safety. That's what I meant. Okay, so we've still got some good names on the board offensively for us, fantasy-wise. We're going to get some of them taken here in the third round. We start with the New York Giants, who went quarterback and quarterback. Okay, so I totally mixed that up. Didn't think that they went quarterback in the first. My apologies. All right, so that was terrible. They should have went, we're going to give them Matthew Golden. All right. Oh, and I only picked to do 2 rounds. Okay, so there we have it. I didn't get Travion Henderson or Matthew Golden, 2 guys who definitely could go in the first round or in the second round of our drafts. You've got Jaden Higgins there at wide receiver, Tez Johnson, the little guy out of Oregon, Jalen Royal's a nice guy from Utah State, and Kyron Lacey from LSU. All these dudes could go in the third round. If you go to the running back position, we're looking at Henderson, DJ Giddens, Cam Scatabo, Bashan Tootin, not familiar with so much, and Brashard Smith, who's got some wheels still from SMU. So these would be your running backs you're looking at getting in with the third round draft capital there. So look at those names, try and check them out on some film if you got the chance, but ideally stick to the top 5 running backs so you can help figure out your first and second rounds. those top 5 backs, Travion Henderson included in there, are Jeanty, Marion Hampton, Caleb Johnson, then the 2 Ohio State boys, and Judkins and Travion Henderson. So be aware of those guys. They all probably will get taken in the first 2 rounds of the draft. So keep that in mind. Jackson Dart, again, somebody who could go anywhere in the 2nd round, possibly the 1st. Him and jalenmilroe, I think, are the 2 quarterbacks to really watch. We know that camward and Shedeur Sanders are probably top 10 picks, but wherever Jackson Dart and jalenmilroe fall is super important in this draft as well. And I think that we'll get a little more clarity once we find out where Sam Darnold goes, because then one of those top 4 teams who needs a quarterback will have solved that problem, so to say. And so they won't have to pick a quarterback in the 1st or 2nd round. But yeah, I think that this draft is loaded at running back. You're going to see tons of running backs taken in rounds 3, 4, and 5 that are all going to be able to step in and play right away. And a lot of these older backs are going to get pushed out the door and by the wayside this coming season in 2025. So continue to watch all those videos out there on running backs. I have no shame. Go ahead and watch everybody else's too. We've got plenty of good info out there. Feel free to drop me a question here in the comments or at buymeacoffee.com/Birdhouse Dynasty show, or check out my Patreon and my rankings for the rookies at patreon.com/Birdhouse Dynasty show. I want to thank you all for joining tonight. That's Mock Draft Monday. We'll be back next Monday for more mock drafting. Never stop working.